Today's topic is on how to age like a pro. How do things change in our 40s, 50s, and 60s? And how we need to start to look at nutrition and fitness and strength training and joint health and recovery a little bit differently, because there's a lot more nuances as we age. Welcome to the show where we help you make smart nutrition simple. If you want proven nutrition strategies to help you build a better body and create the energy to show up for your family without overly restrictive and unrealistic dieting, then you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe and enjoy this episode. Yo, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Smart Nutrition Made Simple show. I've got a great conversation for you today. An exciting conversation. I recently gave a presentation to a great group of guys on how to age like a pro, and created what I call my 10 commandments of fat loss over 40. This is my top 10 guidelines and overarching principles that I think are really important to take into consideration as we get older. And by the way, this is not just for men. This is for men and women, and just ways to think about the aging process, ways to think about nutrition, strength, lifestyle, our time management, our social support system, and so on. And so I am grateful. I'm honored to have you here. I appreciate you having me in your ears. So let's dive in. But like I said, today's topic is on how to age like a pro. How do things change in our 40s, 50s, and 60s? And how we need to start to look at nutrition and fitness and strength training and joint health and recovery a little bit differently, because there's a lot more nuances as we age. Now, one of the things that we see time and time again, and that we have conversations with clients about around the aging process, is a number of things that happen, right? We start to accumulate more belly fat. We feel like we have a harder time losing weight. We often use the word like we have stubborn belly fat, right? And regardless of what we do, it seems like it's just not budging. We have a hard time recovering from our workouts, more joints, aches and pains, a hard time recovering from training, those little nagging injuries that seem to pop up. We experience more stress, right? And frankly, for a lot of us, we have more responsibilities. Now, whether you're a parent, whether you're a spouse, whether you run a business, whether you're an executive, whether you lead a team, whether you do all of those things, I think there's a lot more excuses as we get older as to why it becomes harder to eat healthy and exercise. And because of all of those things, it often feels like we just don't have enough time, right? We just don't have enough time to do all of the things that we feel like we want and or need to do in order to move the needle. And even if we do, we feel like the things that we used to do aren't working for us anymore, right? And so there's a lot of factors at play, all of which we're gonna break down here. Now, like I said, this is a presentation that I did that was in a more extensive training where I went a little more in depth and a little more specific. I'm gonna stay surface level and keep this short and sweet and give you an overview of the 10 commandments here of fat loss over 40. If you want access to the full training and the full webinar presentation, I'm happy to share that with you. No opt-in required. Simply just shoot me an email, ben@bodysystems.com, and I'll send you over the training for your benefit. And so if you find what I talk about here and it resonates with you, if you find value in it and you want more, just let me know. So let's talk about how things change as we age, right? We all have these relevant reasons for why we have a hard time getting and staying in shape. We have work and travel and family, and our hormones change, and we have a harder time recovering, and the list goes on and on and on, right? We all can make excuses. But at the end of the day, in my experience, having done this for 20 years now, working with thousands of clients, men especially, is a lot of this really comes down to setting realistic expectations and figuring out how we can be consistent. And truly, like that's the biggest limiting factor is most people are just not consistent with anything for any considerable period of time, and certainly not long enough to see the results that they say that they want. So I frankly don't care what it is that you're doing. If you're not being consistent with it, like forget about it, right? Because at the end of the day, there's a number of fundamental principles at play that are the most important factors, right? We need to lift weights. We need to manage our calorie intake and make sure we're getting enough vitamins and minerals and and hydration. We need to sleep and recover, and your training is only as good as your recovery. And when we're focusing on those consistently, and consistency, as I established, is the hardest one to follow through with, which is all the more reason to make sure that what we're infusing is actually realistic. And that's a big underpinning of this entire conversation. Well, then and only then are we going to be successful. And then we've got other factors at play. This is where the individuality comes into play. This is where we all have different circumstances and situations and things that are going to work or not work for us, which is where, you've got to identify those things or work with a coach who's going to help you identify those. And that's what we do here at Body Systems, by the way. And so why is it so challenging, right? We have all of these shiny objects in front of us, nutritional timing and ketogenic diet and paleo and carnivore and should I avoid carbs and gluten and dairy and medical weight loss drugs like semaglutide and GLP-1 agonist receptor drugs and supplements and where do I turn? What should I do? There's so much confusing and contradictory information out there. It's really hard to know where to start and what I should focus on. And this is where I think the 10 Commandments come into play, right? Because if we can infuse structure, if we can infuse consistency, then it gives you the opportunity to frankly just focus on the basics, as unsexy as that is, to just focus on the basics and leverage the basics to drive that long-term compounding success. So we never have to feel overly restricted or relegated to any one set nutrition or exercise plan. That's what we want for you. That's what we've found to be successful. So let's dive into the 10 Commandments here. First and foremost is to own your calendar. There's a saying that says, show me your calendar, I'll show you your priorities, right? And if you are in business, if you have a executive, if you have a team, likely you guys follow a calendar and you probably are pretty strict with how you follow that calendar. Well, why don't you have a calendar for your training? Why don't you have a calendar for your meals? Why don't you have a calendar for your family? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. At the end of the day, what we consistently observe is most people have a calendar for work, but everything else that's quote unquote a priority for them is nowhere to be found. There's no structure, no ability to actually prioritize it, in which case you're saying it's not actually a priority. And so we want to be protective with our time, but we also want to be productive with our time. And that means acknowledging where we're burning time. Take a look at your screen time in your phone. Go into settings, take a look at screen time. If you tell me you don't have enough time to exercise, yet I see that you're spending 2 hours a day between social media and YouTube and Netflix, well, then there's obviously discrepancy between what you're doing and what you say that you want. And real quick is, by acknowledging these things, you have the ability to audit and adjust. So every client that comes in and works with us, we run this audit. We do a 1-day or a 3-day time audit where you're actually looking at every 15 minutes of your day, which I strongly encourage. And by doing that, it just forces you to look in the mirror and acknowledge, here's how much time I'm actually wasting. Here's how I could be more productive. And now I can take the things that felt like they were challenging to do or that I quote unquote didn't have enough time for and plug them in so that I can be consistent. Number 2 within 10 Commandments is to train with weights and to be strategic about your training. We know the value of training with weights. It's not about burning more calories. It's not about being huffy and puffy and sweating and accumulating as much fatigue as possible or having these barf-inducing workouts. Those things do not necessarily equal progress. What equals progress from a training standpoint is stimulating muscle growth. And stimulating muscle growth requires what we call progressive overload. This is the opportunity to apply a stimulus in a way that is going to force the muscles to adapt. And that means not doing the same workout that you've been doing since high school. It means changing the exercises, the rep ranges, the strength ranges, the implementation, so the bars and the bands and the handles and the grips that you're using. It means changing the sets and the reps and the rest periods and the time under tension. All of those things contribute to progressive overload. But when it comes to our time, we have to do it in a way that's going to work best for us. And it's not uncommon for us to look at what's optimal and say, well, based on the evidence, and to listen to the evidence bros that say, oh, you shouldn't superset, you shouldn't do giant sets, you shouldn't follow short rest periods, whatever that looks like. What's most important is what you can be consistent with. And what I say is what's better for you is better than what's best. What, quote unquote, what's best. So I'm going to say that one more time. What's better for you is better than what's, quote unquote, best. Meaning, if Joe Schmo online researcher tells you that this set scheme and rep scheme is important, yet it requires you to be in the gym for 90 minutes a day, well, then that's not going to be very realistic for you. And maybe you committing to 30 minutes a day that you know you can do for 5 days a week is going to work. Well, then that's what you should commit to. So what's better for you is better than what's best. You need to have options based on your schedule and your environment, and giving people permission to do this alone. And this is what so many of us of the guys that we work with and the women that we work with, that just by virtue of giving them permission to shorten their workouts, to train every day, to do full body workouts, to do supersets, to get in and out, is so liberating for them and so significantly reduces the amount of anxiety that they have around this process, because then they know it's something that they can be consistent with. And that's what we want for you. Now, number 3 is to manage your calorie intake. I talk all about this, so I'm going to keep this super short and sweet. But at the end of the day, we eat too much. We snack too much. Between entertaining, eating dinners out, alcohol intake, it's too many calories. And so we've got to take ownership over our calorie intake. In our coaching business, we have clients track their calorie intake, not in perpetuity, but certainly over the short term, because it becomes a very good tool to help you acknowledge what you're consuming, help you create more awareness, and ultimately help you make better decisions more consistently, so that you can stay within the appropriate guardrails to be able to see the body composition changes that you're looking for. And especially as we age, when we start to experience things like impaired digestion, gut health, blood sugar imbalances, sleep disturbances, then we've got to start to understand how the foods that we consume impact our energy, our brain function, our sleep, our mood, and ultimately our body composition, because they have a significant correlation. And so when you're tracking your calories and you're managing your intake, you can't help but notice how those correlations apply. Number 4, identify and avoid overwhelm. And this is, like I talked about at the beginning with the shiny object syndrome, is we have anxiety over committing to too many things. I need to do the hour workouts. I need to do the boot camp classes. I need to get 10,000 steps a day. I need to track every morsel of food. I've got to get to bed by 8 p.m. so that I can wake up at 4 a.m. and then I can do my morning routine, and then I can cold plunge and yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. It's too much, man. It's too much, to say nothing of the tracking, the data tracking, the rings and the watches and the fitness trackers and the devices and the biohacking and, all of the shit that's spewed on social media from Huberman and Peter Attia. And it's like, gosh, I'm overwhelmed with all of it. And I have 2 master's degrees in this stuff. So we've got to just take a step back, focus on the data that is the most important around our schedule, around our sleep routines, perhaps around our steps, certainly around how the calories are adding up. And after you've done that, our progressions in the gym, our consistency in the gym, after we've done that consistently, then we can start to acknowledge maybe our deep sleep, maybe our heart rate variability, all of these other minutia factors that so many people are missing the boat on. And it's like we're tripping over dollars to save pennies when someone comes in and they're like, I've got my resting heart rate here and my max heart rate here and my HRV and my sleep hours, yet you're not eating enough protein and you're drinking every single night. right? We're losing the forest for the trees. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Hey guys, I want to interrupt this conversation briefly with an exciting announcement. If you're a father and struggling to lose the pounds that have crept on over the years, I understand your challenge. You're juggling a successful career, a loving family, and now you're looking to regain that energy and physique that seems to have slipped away. And that's exactly why I created Prime Fit Operating System. Prime Fit OS is a unique hybrid coaching program designed specifically for men like you. Now, you guys know me, we're not about quick fixes or impossible routines. Instead, we focus on real sustainable change through personalized nutrition and science-driven strength training, all wrapped up in a supportive community with expert guidance directly from me and my 20 years of experience working with men just like you. Imagine mastering your nutrition without restrictive dieting, getting stronger and leaner, and boosting your overall energy, all without overwhelming your already busy schedule. With Prime Fit OS, you're getting more than just a cookie-cutter nutrition and fitness plan. You're embarking on a transformative journey that fits into your life, not the other way around. So, if you're ready to take the first step towards a healthier, leaner, stronger, more energetic, confident, ass-kicking you, join us over at Prime Fit Operating System. Trust me, guys, your family, your career, and most importantly, you will thank you for it. So if you guys are interested in getting started and want to find out more about the program, let's chat. Just head over to primefitos.com/call and grab a time on my calendar. Remember, it's your time to be at your prime. Number 5, we're going to practice nutrition seasons. We all have seasons of life. We have seasons of our career. We have seasons of business. We have seasons of marriage. We have seasons of being a parent and the kids and the spring breaks and the summer breaks and the vacations and Disney and all of these factors at play, to say nothing of just the seasons of the year: summer, fall, winter, spring. We want to be able to match our goals to the season of everyday life, right? And we can't always be in this uber restrictive, uber regimented season, or to think that you have to diet in perpetuity. Instead of trying to work on everything at once, I want to get leaner, I want to get healthier, I want to get stronger, I also want to be the best parent, I want to focus on this business goal. It's like, dude, it's too much. Like I said, same with the data. Let's factor it around your year-long schedule, right? To say, hey, maybe summer's a better time to have more flexibility and freedom. Maybe fall's a better time to diet down and focus more on calories when the kids are back in school and we're not traveling. Maybe winter's a better time to eat more, enjoy the holidays, drink more, train harder, make some progress in the gym. Then maybe spring we go back into a bit of a fat loss phase, right? And so that's the way that we want to think about things. I go a bit more in depth in this into the actual presentation. And so again, if you want access to the presentation, just shoot me an email, ben@bodysystems.com, and I'm happy to send it over. Number 6, walk more. Walking is the most underrated fat loss tool. Walking improves everything. It improves everything. And if and when clients see stagnation and plateau in their body composition and scale weight, more often than not, the low-hanging fruit is just having them bump up their steps. And so, like I said, walking improves everything. It improves our energy and our mood and our blood sugar regulation and our quality of sleep and our cognitive function and our digestion and our cellular health and our ability to produce energy and our aerobic fitness and our joint health and manage stress, and on and on and on. And so the objectives here are to acknowledge, well, what am I currently getting and how do I start to get more? Our goals are, with clients, usually start around 50 to 70,000 steps per week as a kind of an average goal. That breaks down to 7 to 10,000 steps per day. Like I said, it's usually the biggest elephant in the room, especially when things aren't moving. And for you, if you're like, where do I start? Maybe it feels daunting to start going to the gym, and maybe even it feels daunting to start tracking your calories. And maybe all you can willingly and realistically commit to is to start moving, then this is a beautiful place to start. Just start accumulating more steps and see and pay attention to how things improve from there. Number 7 is your lifestyle is more important than what's optimal. And this is like what I talked about earlier. What's better for you is better than what's best. Lifestyle is more important than what's optimal. We've got to factor in what you can realistically commit to versus what everyone tells you you need to be doing or what the evidence or what the science says is best, right? And this is where when we get started with clients, we look at where they can realistically commit, and we start very practically to the degree that if they say it's like, oh, I can train, 4 or 5 days a week, we might start with 2 to 3 days a week and absolutely own that. Absolutely commit to that. Absolutely check those boxes. Absolutely reinforce and provide evidence to show this individual that they are someone that can be consistent with these, that we're driving momentum despite the fact that we're not training 5 days a week. We're not barfing in the corner after workouts. They're not restricting all of their favorite foods. They don't have to white knuckle the process. They can still enjoy eating out. And when they see that they're building momentum with significantly less than what they thought they needed to do, well, that's so motivating. It's so encouraging, right? And it only makes them want to do more. And that's a beautiful thing, is when you can come in and say, tell me more. What more can I do to move the needle more aggressively, more sustainably, more consistently? And that's what we want for you as well. But ultimately, we've got to infuse this with whatever your lifestyle schedule looks like around the travel, around the seasons, on and on. Number 8 is to train smarter, not harder. As we get older, we've got to ditch the ego and start to choose quality over quantity and better exercises that are going to be more joint friendly, help us implement better form. For example, a trap bar deadlift is going to likely be easier on your low back than a barbell deadlift. Maybe a kettlebell goblet squat's going to be a better tool than a barbell back squat if you have low back issues or hip issues. Maybe a split squat or a rear foot elevated squat or some lunge patterns going to be better than a squat pattern if you find that you have knee issues or back issues. So more is not better. Quality is better than quantity here. And this is where we've got to do our diligence to acknowledge, how am I infusing quality? How am I making sure that I'm staying healthy? How am I'm avoiding working through pain? How I'm leveraging my strength training and my routines to focus more on mobility and flexibility and stay and go through full ranges of motion instead of trying to hit PRs every single session or feel like you need to lift the most weight that you've ever lifted. It's likely not going to happen. And this is where just being very honest with yourself and living to lift another day. It's basically, I'm looking at this as the long game of I never want to be sidelined. And the way that I'm going to be sidelined is if I don't listen to my body, I start to try and push through pain when things get fired up, because they will. If you lift, they will. If you live, they will. If you're physically active, they will. And so how do I play the long game here and acknowledge there are going to be times when I can go in and I can lift really hard. There's going to be times when I go in and I need to back off. But as long as we can kind of train in that moderate to intense zone the vast majority of the time, you're going to be very, very successful. Number 9 is to honor your age and your training history here. Age is a biological reality. I'm getting older as I speak to you here, but also my joints and tissues have been trained in a way that are different than someone else. For example, I've been training for 30 years. If you've been an athlete, if you've been in the gym for a long period of time, there's a certain level of stimulus and stress that you are able to apply to your body relative to someone who is just getting started, and neither is better. In fact, if you're just getting started, I would say that there's a bit of an advantage there in terms of the level of stress and stimulus that you need to apply. It's actually very, very relatively low, to the degree that you can get away with so much with such a smaller amount of perceived volume right? Maybe I need 3 or 4 sets, maybe you need 1 set to create a similar level of stimulus. And that's really cool because it allows you to mitigate risk. It helps you manage kind of this stimulus to fatigue ratio and allows you to train hard, but also to train safe. And like I said, to live to lift another day is what we want. Lastly here is everything matters. Everything's connected. And there's no one thing, a lot of times we talk about, if we're trying to lose body fat, people say, well, nutrition is 80 or 90% of the battle. I don't agree with that. I think they're all important, right? Training is important. Nutrition is important. Your lifestyle and your recovery is important. And your mindset is important. How you think about things, your belief in yourself, your level of commitment, who you surround yourself with, your self-talk. I think all of these things are, frankly, equally important because they all determine your level of consistency. Just like a 4-legged stool. If we cut off any one of those legs, well, you're going to have a pretty damn wobbly, if not toppling over stool. And so we've got to address all 4 pillars here and be willing to acknowledge the factors that change as we age around stress, around food, around alcohol, around joint health, around relationships, around work responsibilities, around family. It's different. It's nuanced, and it requires us to approach it from a different standpoint. And that's why I think these 10 commandments of fat loss are so important, specifically for men, but also, for women in our 40s, 50s, and 60s, so that we can approach this from a standpoint of longevity, of growth, of consistency, of compounding interest, if you will. I've got one more bonus, one more opportunity for you. In addition to catching this recording, I did actually put together a body systems assessment. It's a quick 1-page questionnaire. We look at your nutrition, your metabolism, your cardiovascular health, your muscular strength, and your readiness for change. And we look at these through a number of different questions that I ask around your diet, around your routines, around your sleep behaviors, around your time management, around your digestion. And if you want access to this body systems assessment, the link is going to be right in the show notes below. It is a free assessment. And if you fill out this assessment, I will personally send you a response. And I'll personally send you feedback as to 1 or 2 or 3 things that I think you can start to infuse that will help you move the needle. And if it makes sense, we can also jump on a call and we can talk through the assessment and we can lay out a plan of attack, whether that involves working directly with us or whether it involves implementing it on your own. But because I'm grateful for you listening, because I want to give back, because I want to help give you the tools to apply, I'm offering this body systems assessment to you, no charge. Fill out the assessment, submit it. I'll send you direct feedback. And again, if it makes sense, we'll have a conversation and we'll talk about what it would look like to help you consistently move the needle, whether it's on your own or whether it's working together. All right. Hope that's helpful for you guys. Again, super grateful to have the opportunity to speak to you. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen in. And if this is helpful, share this with someone whom you think could benefit. And leave us a 5-star rating and a positive review so that we can help more people make smart nutrition simple. Have a great day. Much love. Thank you so much for listening. And if you found this content valuable, here are 4 ways I can help you in your nutrition journey for free. 1. Grab a free copy of my Fat Loss Fix Guide at fatlossfixguide.com. 2. Join my free group at smartnutritionmadesimple.com. 3. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at smartnutritionmadesimpletv.com. 4. Leave a 5-star rating and positive review so that we can gain access to more nutrition experts ready to share their knowledge with you and ultimately help more people make smart nutrition simple.